Sunlight, and you hold me as I breathe. It's the summertime, 'cause I'm blowing through the breeze. You said I'm born to you, I'm born to see the day come through. I should care for you like you want me to. Like the one you see. Alright. Whoa, I don't want to see no more. Alright. Whoa, I don't want to see no more. Alright. Oh, I don't want to see no more. Yeah, no right. Turn me up in this place. It's an ocean of sound, yeah. Said turn me up in this place, yeah. Till the ocean is found. No, I don't want to see. It feels like I've been such a stranger. It feels like everything is wrong. It feels like I've been gone for ages. You're soon too done before too long, too long, too long, too long, too
yourself and give people the grace and the beauty that makes you unique and what you could do for this planet. And go ahead and rock this world.
I want to take part in influencing more young people.
Young people like you, like us, need to join in the discussion.
You will always find hope in every beginning.
It's inspiration, it's passion, it's fun, it's love.
Happy birthday, YMCA!
Don't wait to be inspired. Inspire others and make it happen.
Good morning!
Good morning, YMCA!
Bright and early, we meet again. How are you all feeling today? Awake? Rested?
Are they awake?
I don't know.
Are you awake?
Should we test it out? Everybody stand up if you're awake. Oh, 7 people. That's good. Okay, 12. All right. This is good. Maybe just a little stretch. You know, you don't want to pull a hammy while you're sitting here. Just make sure you're nice and limber. How did the evening finish up for everybody? Did you do some London activities? Some?
More or less.
Well, we have a terrific program in store for you today. I am very excited to have with me. You might notice that Mike looks a bit different
Today.
So please join me in welcoming a good friend and lifelong Y colleague of mine, Antonio Marino. Tell him a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Thank you, Ashley. Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
Yeah, good morning. Yesterday you got an upgrade with Mike, but I'm here today with you and happy to join this morning plenary. As Ashley said, my name is Antonio Marino, also go by Toño, and I'm the General Secretary for the Latin American and Caribbean Alliance of YMCAs.
Woo! It doesn't sound like Laka is in the house this morning. Is
I think
that
they are
true?
sleeping. They had a long night, I guess.
Well, we are really excited to bring to you a program this morning that features, again, some of our TED Ed speakers, just like you heard from yesterday, and a few other folks who are along with us in this journey of bringing together issues and experiences from around the world, right?
Yes, and for our first speaker, I'm very honored to introduce someone who has seen the future, and he actually loves it. Graeme tracks the trends that will change the world dramatically in the next decade. With 5 best-selling books to his name and a travel itinerary that took him to 24 countries just last year, Graeme is one of the world's most sought-after experts on the future of work. He is here to show us that what we need to do today in order to be successful in tomorrow's world. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to the CEO of Tomorrow Today Global, Graeme Codrington.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. My job is to think about the future. I work with companies all over the world, helping them to think about the future. Not 175 years into the future, just the next 10 or 15, helping them to understand how the forces of change are going to impact their industries, their businesses, and their functions. As we look at the 2020s, what faces us is a decade of unprecedented change. We're going to see more change in the next 10 years than we've seen in the last 100 combined. In fact, a few years ago, I was listening to a presentation here at the London School of Economics by Bill Gates, and he in fact made this point. He was asked, what are you expecting in the 2020s? And his answer was really, really interesting. He said, over the last 40 years, 50 years or so, we've created building blocks of change. In every aspect of life, we've built computers that were initially in our basements, then on our desktops, then on our laps, now in the palms of our hands. We've connected everything and everybody to the internet, and we're increasing the speed of those connections and engagements. And in industry after industry, from engineering to medicine, we are creating building blocks. But what's going to happen next, and this is the exciting part of the 2020s, is those building blocks are going to combine together to create systems change. We're going to see the systems of the world changing. A really good example of this is driverless cars. Driverless cars bring together 5 or 6 really, really great technologies, from artificial intelligence to radar, from the Internet of Things through to intelligent machines. And driverless cars are going to change the world. Cars changed the world 100 years ago. When they became accessible to all of us. They allowed us to change the shape of our cities and build suburbs. They spread tarmac across the planet, changing the way that we lived. Driverless cars are going to do that again, because it isn't just the old car, but now you don't have to drive it. Driverless cars allow us to change our lives. We don't have to take kids to school anymore. We don't have to drive down to the mall for shopping. We can just send the car to go and fetch it for us. It changes the way we live. It changes where we live. It changes how we live. So I think Bill Gates got it spot on, that this decade that lies ahead is a decade of systems change. And we're going to see that impact every single part of the world, every industry, and every country in the world. A lot of people are using the label the Fourth Industrial Revolution to talk about this. It's a bit of a cliche, and if you go to conferences these days, in every industry, you're going to have at least one speaker talking about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. The problem with the label is this. If you don't know what the first, second, and third industrial revolutions were, well, then the fourth makes no sense, does it? It's just a number. Why is it the fourth industrial revolution? So I thought for us this morning, although it is my job to look at the future, we are celebrating 175 years of history. Maybe let's start with a little bit of history to get our minds around this label of the fourth industrial revolution. I promise a little history lesson is going to be really valuable here this morning. So, the first industrial revolution began in 1712 when an Englishman called Thomas Newcomen invented a steam-driven pump. It was used in the Welsh coal mines to bring water out of the mines. It allowed those miners to dig deeper, to dig faster, to get more coal out of those mines, more coal per person per day. And within a few years and a few decades, every other industry on the planet had worked out that these machines could enhance the productivity and efficiency of what they were doing. From the printing press, printing books and newspapers, to making clothes. Every industry was impacted. Of course, a century later, in the middle of the 1800s, when we had industrialized every industry, we realized that just speeding up things, making things cheaper, better, and faster, but with no consideration to the humans in the system, no consideration for the planet and the impact on the planet, well, we had created a bit of a mess. That's why these pumps and machines and engines and from steam moved to oil, petrol, diesel, internal combustion, reached a problem. People were being hurt by the system. And that's why 175 years ago, there was a need for an organization to engage with young people. As it happened back then, mainly young men doing the working in those factories. But of course, we know why we're here 175 years later. There was a problem that needed to be fixed, and the YMCA was part of that solution. Remember that thought, because I think we need the YMCA now, again, for similar reasons. I'll come back to that towards the end of my talk. Anyway, 1844 moved on. We're going into the second half of the 1800s. And now suddenly people realize there isn't any more productivity to be gained. There isn't any more efficiency to be gained. The machines are doing everything that the machines can do. And so begins the second industrial revolution. The second industrial revolution didn't really invent any new technologies. What it did was it took all of those technologies that had been invented in the first industrial revolution, and it used those technologies to fundamentally change the world of work, the way that we worked, the way that we lived. Your best example is Henry Ford's motor factory. See, Henry Ford didn't invent the car. He didn't invent any of the components on the car. But what he did do was invent a new way to build cars, the continuous production line. By the time he had perfected it in the 1920s, they were able to produce one Model T Ford every 32 seconds. That was in 1922. As they came off of that production line, he realized that he had changed the way that production would work forever. He also did other things. For example, did you know that Henry Ford doubled the wages of all of the factory workers? He wanted them to be able to afford to buy the cars that they were making. And when he did the calculation, he realized that they needed to have double the salary or the wages that they had. So he did that. He just doubled them. You're going to need to remember this next sentence. So concentrate now. If you're looking down at your phones, look up at me. You need this next sentence in a few moments. The second industrial revolution did not invent any new technologies. It took the technologies that existed and used them to completely reimagine the way that the world worked, the way that work worked. Got it? So now we can go to the third industrial revolution. Beginning in the 1950s and 60s, we've got computers, the digital age. We know this revolution, from computers to the internet and everything in between. So now we get to the fourth industrial revolution. I wonder what you think the fourth industrial revolution is. In fact, we're too big an audience for you to shout out, so why don't you just turn to the person next to you and say, what do you think the fourth industrial revolution is? So when I'm speaking to a smaller audience and we get a chance to shout out, people will shout out things like robotics, artificial intelligence, automation. Maybe that's something that you said. But you get the prize this morning if you said the following. The fourth industrial revolution does not invent any new technologies. It takes the technologies that already exist and invites us to completely reimagine the world. Told you you'd need the sentence, I even gave you the words. So if the person next to you said that, you can give them a high five, tell them they won the prize this morning. There we go, there's a few of you following me this morning, congratulations. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So in most of the countries represented here in the room today, we don't actually have a health care system. We have a sick care system. You only go to the doctor when you're sick, right? And the doctor might have all sorts of specialized equipment, all sorts of technologies from the third industrial revolution to check you out. But the doctor is essentially doing the same job that doctors were doing 100 years ago, just with slightly better equipment and slightly improved medication. Wouldn't it be better if your doctor could take all of the medical data that exists around you? So many of you have got a fitness tracker. How many of you wear a fitness tracker on a fairly regular basis? Whatever the device. So we're measuring steps, we're measuring heart rate. Some of you have got the advanced ones. They measure temperature and blood pressure and sleep and all sorts of information. So let's say your doctor had access to all that information. Then your doctor, who lives in your neighborhood, gets all of the information from all of the schools in your area. You will know that primary schools in particular are a hotbed of disease. If one kid gets sick, then everybody else gets sick, and primary school teachers need to be researched by the medical world. I don't know how they stay healthy through the year. They must have the systems of like complete concrete to deal with what comes through. But the doctors should be plugged into what's going on. If there's a bout of flu coming through the neighborhood, your doctor should anticipate that. And instead of waiting until you're sick before you go to the doctor should contact you 2 or 3 days before you even have any symptoms and say, hey, Graeme, I think you might get flu by Thursday. Look after yourself. Here's some medication just to kind of ward off. It's not difficult to imagine that in the future your doctor will be a lot more proactive. Wouldn't it be awesome if we only paid our doctors when we were well? That would give them the right incentive. I can easily picture this in the future. Can you? That's the fourth industrial revolution. It's not inventing new technologies, but it's using the technologies we've got to fundamentally flip things on their heads. And we can do this with any industry. From education to engineering. So, automation is going to be a big feature of the 2020s. Because actually, it's not going to be your doctor that sends you that note to say you're going to get sick in 3 days' time. It will be the doctor's computer, right? And there are going to be a lot of jobs and a lot of industries that are going to be impacted by this kind of smart system. The good news for you here is that none of you are going to be impacted by that. The types of jobs that you guys are after, the young people of today are thinking about the future, thinking differently. You're not going to be replaced by machines. I mean, most of us in this room are not going to be replaced. I'm not going to be replaced by a machine. I mean, how do we replace live acts, live music, live talking? It's impossible to replace somebody.
Excuse me, Graeme. You're speaking nonsense.
Somebody heckling me out there.
Why are you looking out into the audience? I'm over here. Yes, here. Hello. Yes, hello.
Who are you?
Well, who do you think it is? It's me. Well, you. I suppose it's us. Anyway, it's me in the future. I'm here from the year 2125. Yeah, I know I'm on a little bit of a dodgy line. Or I think the dodgy's on your side. I'm on 11G over this side.
How is this even possible?
Well, I can't explain any of that because the rules of time travel mean if we give you any specifics about the future, apparently the whole space-time continuum is messed up. Okay, but what I can say is that from the year 2125, you're speaking nonsense. And that's what I need to help this audience to understand. I know why you're trying to tell them that everything's going to be fine and that they're not going to lose their jobs and that automation isn't going to affect them. I know you're just trying to give them a little bit of comfort, but you're absolutely wrong. And I needed to make sure that they understood that.
Just hang on a minute here, hang on. I'm the one in charge here.
Rather let me explain. I'm the one from the future, so I'm the one who's seen all of this stuff. So let me take it from now. Is that okay?
Okay, looks like I'm being replaced. Go for it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So let me explain what happened over the last century between where you are and where I am. It really comes down to three things that really changed the world completely and allowed for the automation of pretty much every single job on the planet. It starts with quantum computing. I mean, you guys think you've got really smart computers and supercomputers and those wonderful smartphones you still use. Well, when quantum computing hit towards the end of the late 2020s, good grief, it changed everything. You cannot believe what happens when computers just ratchet up that thinking power and the insights that they came up with. I mean, they even went back to all of our old science experiments and all of our old textbooks, and they began to find things that we had missed. It was unbelievable, the growth in knowledge. The second thing that happens is the Internet of Things. I think that's what you call it back then now. It's when we connect every single thing to the Internet and create these network effects. I mean, the best example I can give you is of driverless cars. I mean, I think driverless cars are pretty much, yeah, that's right.
Yep,
They're nearly there for you now. And you know, of course, that they're coming. But here in 2125, driverless and flying cars, and we don't even call them cars anymore, but these transportation pods that we use are all compulsory driverless. Nobody is allowed to drive anymore. You see, you get a network effect when every single car is driverless. The cars can speak to each other. They come up with the best traffic pattern. In fact, there is no traffic anymore. It's completely efficient in the transport systems. We can drive faster. We can drive further. And of course, there are no accidents because all the cars speak to each other. So that's the network effect that happens when we connect everything to the internet. And the third major revolution was machine learning. When those first two things of quantum computing and connectivity and network effects come together, and then we stop just teaching computers to do what we tell them to do and start teaching them how to think for themselves, well, machine learning just unlocked everything. You know what, the 2020s, I wish I could live through them again. That was the most remarkable technology decade in human history. Still lives in our memories today. But let me really now be fair to what he was trying to say to you, because it isn't all doom and gloom for humans. Yes, a lot of the jobs and tasks that you know today are going to be replaced by computers through the 2020s. But by the middle of the 2030s, we had worked out that we actually needed, not just needed, we wanted a human touch. And so we overcorrected with automation and then had to bring humans back into the system. I mean, think about it. Would you like to have a doctor that gets their diagnosis right every single time, that gets their treatment perfectly every single time? Well, of course you would. That's the computer. But then would you like that doctor to have zero emotions about the information they give you? Surely you want somebody with a bit of empathy and emotion to tell you if it's seriously bad news. You don't just want a machine to give you a message about it. So we had to bring humans back into the medical system. You know, it's one thing to have one of those automated gym computers do a DNA analysis and a metaphysical analysis and come up with your perfect gym routine. It's another thing to have a human gym buddy who makes it fun and exciting and you actually enjoy doing the exercise that the machine tells you to do. Oh, and by the way, we still have human dentists. I mean, not even robots want to work in other people's mouths for a living. Does that make sense to you?
Actually, it does. You're still a pretty good presenter, old man. But tell me, why do you look so young? You're 100 years in the future.
Thank you very much. But, well, if I can let you into a little secret over here, genetic modification is the bomb. There's no doubt about it that our ability to edit DNA, reverse the aging process, one of the great inventions of the last century. And then, of course, you add to that the ability to actually print out body parts. Not everything on this body is original, let's just put it that way. And we've then got those genetic energy implant packs, you know, that allow us to make sure that all the bits and pieces are still working as they should do. You know what I mean? Don't do that. You're going to thank me later, promise. Just what I can tell you, I've already told you too much, but what I can say is you're never going to retire, but don't stop saving for those later years because, you know, looking this good doesn't come cheap. You're going to need some money.
Well, certainly our fashion preferences are still the same.
Well, yes, sometimes class is permanent, can't be improved, not for anything. Hello? Are you there? I think our link is breaking up. Maybe we're running out of airtime here. Yeah.
Yep.
Final questions? Yeah?
Is the YMCA still going to be here?
Of course the YMCA still exists. In fact, next week I'm speaking at their 280th anniversary event. I've actually got to go and prepare for it now. In fact, maybe some of you in the audience will be with me at that 280th event. Anyway, got to go now. Really, you need to enjoy the 2020s. It's the most remarkable decade. It's amazing. Enjoy.
Just a little bit of fun, but to make the point that we've got to flip everything on its head. We are facing a decade or two where everything is going to change and everything is going to be up for grabs. So what? Very quickly as I close, an implication for the YMCA. 175 years ago, the world of work was in turmoil. Young people in particular didn't know where their place was in the world. They looked ahead at an uncertain future, at a world that was changing faster than it had ever changed before, and they were lost and needed help. Does that sound familiar? Right now, more, I think, than at any other time in the last 175 years, we need organizations like the YMCA to stand with the young people of the world and to say, it's going to be okay. We've got this. We can do this. The YMCA, I believe, is more relevant now than it's ever been. But so what for you? Very briefly, 5 things for you personally to take away as you think about what the next decade or two holds for you as a young person in this crazy, turbulent world. The first thing is, most of you in this room will see your 100th birthdays. Many of you will be at the 280th anniversary of the YMCA. Not in some Zimmer frame making your way in. You'll still be able to do the yoga sessions. The first person to live to 150 years old is already alive. Anybody who was born in the 1990s, here? Almost all of you are going to die in the next century. You are going to live in 3 centuries, the first human beings as a generation to do it. If you're here with one of your friends, you might be friends with that person for another 100 years. I hope you've chosen wisely. That's a long time. That's a long time. But that means you have to plan for a life of that length. That length of life needs planning and forethought. It can't just be allowed to happen. And you've got to think you've got longer than 70 or 80 years on this planet. You might have double that. What are you going to do with all those years? The second thing is we need to stop thinking about AI and start thinking about IA. AI, artificial intelligence, is too big a thought. It feels like you have to have a Google supercomputer in your basement. What the 2020s is going to be about is intelligent assistance. And it's already in the palm of your hand. Everything we do and everything we engage with needs to be in the palm of our hand and allow us to have intelligent assistance. That's going to apply to the work that the YMCA does. And it's great to see so much digital integration even at this conference. But you've got to integrate digital into your lives. And then finally, you've got entrepreneurship being absolutely essential. That doesn't mean you can't get a job, but it does mean there will be parts of your life when you don't have a job, and you need to be able to be an entrepreneur. This may be something that the YMCA can really, really help with. Fourthly, there's on-demand working. We're not going to work the way that we used to work. There's opportunities in the gig economy for everybody. And finally, I can't apologize on behalf of all old people, but I can say that we unfortunately are leaving a broken world for your generation to fix. We want you to take the lead. We want you to begin now to fix the planet. The 2020s is a remarkable decade of change with lots that's broken and difficult, but so much opportunity that lies ahead. What a wonderful time to be a young person in the history of the world. What a wonderful time to be connected to an organization that connects young people and has the 175-year momentum behind it to change the world, to change your lives, to change your life. Thank you. If you want some more information, if you want to know what a futurist does and have access to some of our research and resources, that's how to get hold of it there. Notice, please, it's YMCA capital letters, exactly as you see it. I'll be here for the whole day and through tomorrow, so chat to me if you can. Otherwise, join some of the workshops and panel discussions later today. As we think about, yes, 175 years gone, but 175 years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wow. So, nothing like a little trip to the future to start your day.
Can you imagine that? In the next 15 years, we're going to see more change than in the last 50.
Yeah, I'm practicing I'm just going to pretend that I am an AI so that if things go wrong, I'm just going to sneak over with their crew.
Yeah, that's how it's going to be.
I'll bring some of you all with me. We're going to be friends for another 100 years.
I know, that's
though,
very
maybe.
cool, isn't it?
I'm going to need more time to write apology notes to people, I think. So I think maybe before we dive into our next speaker, we've got a clip to watch.
Yep.
Usain Bolt has stopped! Usain Bolt has stopped at the 50-meter line! Oh, that is a pity! Fire. Apollo, you're on course. 226 hours to the moon orbit.
Okay, thanks, Houston. But I think we'll be heading back now.
Come again?
Yeah, it was kind of fun, but I think halfway will do. Job done.
Good night.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
All right. So, like Graeme mentioned, we will have a lot of problems to solve in the future, beginning now with young people. And it's going to take us being the best version of ourselves, I think, if we're going to be up to this task for the next potentially 100 years. So here to chat with us a little bit about how we might find that version of ourselves is Elise from Scandinavia and Kenya. She's a global representative. Please welcome Elise.
Thank you. You guys look amazing. I think this will be fun. All my life, there has been people near me who are struggling with different kinds of mental health issues, some more severe than others. But if you can consider that 1 in 4 adults have some kind of mental health disorder, there is most likely someone near you too. Having these people around me whom I truly love made me long for more information, even at a very young age. I was thinking, what's up with these people? What can I know? What can I learn? Why are this one struggling, this friend or this family member? What can be done? At the same time, all my life I've also been thinking that there is something wrong with me. Something terribly wrong. I couldn't really even put a finger on what. I was just having that feeling. Something is so bad that I cannot tell anyone about this. And for some time, I was genuinely afraid of that if some people knew or figured out, I would be sent away to Mars. Living with aliens, a lonely and painful life. So when that was my reality, of course, I had to keep my thoughts to myself. And I did. So, while having these thoughts, I still have all these people around me, struggling a lot with mental health. So, I'm trying to gain knowledge, but I'm not yet relating it to myself at all. Talking to all these people, talking with the school nurse, trying to gain knowledge, to seek the information. And as a sensitive person, I was getting a bit affected by all those people around me. I did see a psychologist from around the age of 16, but many of my thoughts were still being hidden, as I was still afraid that if I say all these things, if I open up, I will be probably sent away to some institution, or I will not be able to be with people or my friends anymore. So it's better to just keep it for myself. So I didn't even share so much with my psychologist that I was with for 5 years. So, yeah, continuing to keep scary thoughts to myself. As I kept on with this, there was a famous radio host in Norway who was sharing about her experience with anxiety and with panic attacks. And when I heard this, I was shocked. And I was like, what? This is what's happening to me too. And after hearing about it, I started to share a bit with my psychologist. And she was confirming, yes, this is anxiety. No, it's not dangerous. Yes, it's a panic attack. No, you will not die. No, it's not somebody behind the door who's about to murder you. It's your thoughts. And maybe you can try to just notice that it's happening without really thinking too much more about it. Try to just be aware. And I did. And it was getting a bit better. I didn't really talk so much more about it or think so much more about it. But then I knew that what was happening was a panic attack and it was anxiety. I was not about to die, which is quite comforting to know. A few years later, the same radio host made a podcast about anxiety, and I'm a fan. So I listened to all episodes straight the same day as it was launched. It took me about 8 hours, and then I listened to all again, because I learned so much from it. The first thing I did was to get a new psychologist. The second thing was to tell all my loved ones about this podcast, because I was learning so much from it. Now, once again, everything was changing. I was originally searching for this information to be able to understand and support others. But suddenly, it was all about me. Everything that used to be wrong was not really wrong anymore. Now it was anxiety, and it was OCD. It was panic attacks and performance anxiety. I was suddenly a normal human being. I hadn't known that for 20 years, so it was quite a relief. I used to know OCD as the stereotype from all movies. You know, when one person have to clean every single grape very, very well before they can eat them, and if you look at their wardrobe, the things are in the most perfect order. If you know me, these characteristics, they don't fit me at all. So I didn't even think about that something like OCD could be relevant to me. But it's so much more than the stereotype. All of this is kind of recent. It's just 1.5 years ago. Then let me jump a bit in time. 7 months ago, I moved to Kenya, and it was through the Norwegian Exchange Corporation, Norway, and I was working with the YMCA as a young advocate for change. When I was going there, I knew that my exchange project had to be about mental health. Lucky as I am, I met some people who are truly passionate about mental health. So we teamed up. However, most of the other people that I was meeting there, they didn't have access to much information and didn't know so much about it in general. When I started talking about mental health, some were telling me that mental health, epilepsy, and mental disabilities all is the same thing. Others were telling me about how mental health all is about witchcraft, and that's what it's caused by, and that we shouldn't really care so much about it. At the same time, also, in WhatsApp groups and messages, in newspaper, I was hearing about new cases of suicide on a weekly basis. I knew something needed to be done. Step by step, the Mental Health Club started to become a reality. For the first time ever, the Kenyan YMCA now has a platform to talk about mental health. Almost every week now, there is a group of youth who come together in the YMCA to discuss various matters on mental health. Youth can meet professional counselors and psychologists, and also other youth who are interested in learning and knowing about mental health. They can also get information about where to get free counseling, talk to psychologists, and about crisis helpline. Kenya is not a unique example at all when it comes to that mental health is a taboo and that it's lack of information and knowledge. It's all over the world. I mean, it was with me all my life, and I'm from Norway. So I think it's the same pretty much everywhere. But we can all make a change, no matter what the state of our mental health is. After getting more knowledge about mental health and understanding what's up with all these thoughts, all I needed was to be seen, to be heard, and to be accepted. Youth all over the world need this, and I hope that the YMCA everywhere can provide this to the youth. Right now, or actually let me tell you, this morning, I got a message from some of my friends in Kenya asking, hey, we need you to make the poster for next week when we're having the Mental Health Club again. And I'm so freaking excited about that this is still running. It's so great. Now youth have a platform to be getting the same experience as what I did. Thank you.
All right, come sit down and I'll ask you a question.
Join me in the living room.
Thank you.
So we have talked a lot about mental health. This is a passion area of mine as well, and has been since my time working with the Y. Things are different now. There are more conversations, more young people talking about important issues like mental health. At TED, we get talks from young people all over the world that have to do with anxiety, depression, pressure from school, cross-cultural issues that related to mental health. And I'm curious to know what you think we can do specifically with social media. because that's something that there's a lot of discussion about, it adding to the complexity of how we build healthy mind, body, and spirit for young people. What do you do?
Oh, social media, I think it's complicated because I think, or relating it to mental health, it can be both the best and the worst thing.
Right.
So it's all about how we use it. And of course, I think that if you look at an old photo album, you haven't put every time you're feeling miserable in life,
you put the
basically.
good stuff.
Yes.
Put the good stuff
and I
up
think
there.
we're using social media the same way, so I think it's a lot about that we should be very much aware of that whenever we see people are doing so perfectly fine, that we have to be aware that that's not how life is for anyone.
It's not the whole story.
Definitely.
Right.
And I also think that when or if people are comfortable and confident and want to share, that's very, very comforting. Or even with me, if other people had not been sharing on about mental health on social media, maybe I still would have been thinking that I'm an alien. So I think it's very, very useful. It's just that we have to be a bit careful, but it's an amazing tool.
And that's something that I've noticed that you do as well. You talk about your own journey with mental health very authentically, which a lot of times can help give other people permission to learn on their own or explore or talk about their own journeys. So that's something that I think we can all take away, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us,
Elise.
Elisa. Round of applause for Elisa. Come on.
And now, to continue listening to these great, real, powerful stories, I'd like to invite to the stage a good friend of mine, Daniel Lopez, who joined the YMCA. Daniel joined the YMCA at age 9. He loves football, he loves pizza, but more importantly, what he likes the most about the YMCA is that the YMCA is changing one life at a time. And he's going to be talking about the transformation that the work that each of you is doing every day in your communities is doing to change our world. So please join me in welcoming Daniel.
Hi, everybody. My name is Daniel, as Antonio kindly said. I'm 18 years old, and I'm from YMCA Bogota in Colombia. And, well, in this opportunity, I would like to start this, with some questions. Maybe have you ever thought that when you're older, then you will be able to do greater things? Or have you ever thought that we are too young to make a big change or a big impact in the people's life? Well, I want to tell you a little bit about my story, because I started so young, and all the time the people told me, oh, but you are too young to do that things, or you are too young to do what you are doing. But, well, at the beginning, I was so shy, and I was very shy and very insecure about myself, and also about one of our slogans that we have in YMCA Bogota, that is transforming lives. Because it did not seem that easy. It did not seem that I could do that. It was a really big challenge. But I realized that in order to do this slogan, to transform lives, we have to do two things. First, we need to transform our lives, and then we'll be able to transform other people's lives. Once you recognize the God's love in your heart, then you will be able to carry out that love and to share with the people at any age. I want to tell you a story about this that I'm saying. When I was with the YMCA in Bogota, in my city, doing volunteering, we went to another section, or to another localidad that is called Bosa, in the southwest of the city. And, well, there I work with the community, and I work with a family of 7 children who live in a house made of cans, just cans. Is this not incredible? We would think that in the 21st century, in a city that appears to be so developed like Bogota, this would not happen. But this is a face of Bogota that not everybody knows. There, we carry out a project, a big project with the community and with children. And for the closing, we did an event with the families. It was an event with around 40 people there. In that activity, I was in the middle, leading the group, leading the songs. And during that, a child approached, placed himself next to me, here, that's a little child, placed himself next to me, and started to leading the activity with me, and started to leading the songs, and to leading the group. Oof, believe me, there is nothing more wonderful than seeing how that fire of passion and love is transmitted, is shared with a child who starts to dream with a different reality. Because of this, of things like this in Bosa, I realized that we as young people of the world, we have an incredible gift. The power to transform other lives, the power to transform realities by making our best with love and passion. We don't have to wait until we are older to do greater things. Our time is now. And also our duty as young people of the world is to share and multiply all our knowledge so that other people, just as we, that we are here, can serve. And also our duty as young people is to build a better society for those who are often forgotten and for those who no one listens to, those people who live in forgotten sides of the cities. I have realized that, well, actually, no matter how old you are, what really matters is what are you doing at that age? In Colombia, there is a phrase that they told me once, is that the history is written every day. And this is our time to write a new history in our lives and also in other people's lives. No later, when we are older, we don't have to wait for the next years. This is my conviction as a young man and because by coaching more young people, we can expand the dream of George Williams. Because small actions in many places can generate enormous change. And it's not crazy to dream with a different world, where we can live the God's love in our daily lives. And I want to close this part, I want to finish this part with a question. Are you living your life to the fullest, or are you waiting for the upcoming years? Thank you very much. Thank you.
We have heard Elise discuss her own journey in dealing with mental health. We've heard Daniel talk about what it means to serve, to create a better society, a better environment for others. Now we're going to combine those two a little bit and hear from a young woman who is doing both of those things. And in that work, she's already created a nonprofit. She was recently awarded the YMCA Peace Medal. She's one of the youngest recipients ever to receive that award. She's been recognized as one of Canada's top immigrant service award recipients. And she's here to talk about her own journey launching a mental health nonprofit and creating a world where there are support systems for everyone. Please welcome Loizza.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone, or I think afternoon. Good afternoon. First off, I want to start off by saying happy birthday to YMCA and congratulations for 175 years, and thank you for all the work you have done for all the young people across the world. My name is Loizza Aquino. I'm 19 years old. I was born in Manila. I moved to a small city in Canada named Winnipeg, and I currently live in Toronto. I currently attend the University of Toronto, and I'm pursuing an honors Bachelor of Psychology and Health Sciences, and I'm doing a major in mental health studies, a major in international development studies, and a minor in media studies. I'm the founder of Peace of Mind Canada, a youth mental health nonprofit, as well as Leaders of Today Canada, a youth empowerment nonprofit. Today, I want to talk about mental health, but first, I need a quick visual, and I need all of your help. If you're comfortable and able, I need you to please stand up if you know somebody who has died by suicide. If you're comfortable and able, I need you to please stand up or remain standing if you know somebody who is diagnosed with a mental illness. And if you're comfortable and if you're able, I need you to please stand up or remain standing if you have ever struggled with your mental health before, whether it be being overwhelmed with stress or forgetting to take care of yourself. I want you all to take a moment to look around the room and understand what I see as well. Thank you. Please have a seat. Did you know every 40 seconds, someone in the world dies by suicide, according to the World Health Organization? In front of me are thousands of beautiful people gathered together from across the world, all coming from different walks of life and sharing unique perspectives and narratives. As a young person, as an immigrant, as a person of color, and as a woman, underestimation and being overlooked and not being taken seriously is no foreign concept to me. There have been many challenges and many moments in my social activism career that have been filled with self-doubt, negativity, and discouragement. But I'm reminded every single time that I must use my minorities to push me to be more and to do more, because I represent more than just myself. So it is my honor to be up here today to share my story as I get to represent all the minorities that make up who I am. I thought long and hard about a common message that would be relevant and applicable to everyone in the audience, regardless of what you're passionate about. And I came down to one word, and that was conversation. Mental health was not always the focal point of my activism. A bit about my background is that I actually started my first fundraiser when I was 9 years old for victims of Typhoon Ndoye, and that was in 2009. So all the way from when I was 9 years old to 15 years old, I was always an advocate for child rights and human rights and youth empowerment, up until I was 15 years old on June 17th, 2015, the day I lost one of my best friends to suicide. His suicide was one of 4 high school student suicides that occurred in Winnipeg within the time span of 1 month. And in a city as small as Winnipeg, you can kind of understand how hard it hit the community. You can try to imagine the frustration and confusion and the sadness that flooded the city, as well as onto social media through hashtags and pictures and old stories. And I remember exactly where I was when I found out. I was sitting on my basement couch on my phone, and I got a text from my old teacher from middle school. And I thought there was no way that it was true. I had just seen him the next day. So I messaged him, I called Miguel, I messaged him on Facebook, I texted him, everything. And I didn't stop. I called some of our friends to see if anyone had heard from him. And I never stopped until his mother texted me saying, yes, it was true. He really was gone. And I'm not gonna lie and say that I dealt with it in the best way possible. I sat on the couch for a long time. Needless to say, my life has not been the same since then. A week passes by, and I was asked to do the eulogy at his funeral. So on June 24th, I spoke in front of an overpacked funeral home with over hundreds of people, and I shared the stories and words he will forever be remembered by next to his open casket. I remember the day after he passed away, I didn't tell my family. I fell asleep right on that couch, and I was dreading getting up the next morning because I also had an exam. And it was the first day of exam season. And I hadn't told anyone in my family, and I went upstairs, and the first thing I had was my mom asking me if I was okay. And it turns out the principal had called my house phone and told us that if I needed help, there were resources available at school. But if I'm being honest, I didn't want to talk. I just wanted to know why. And I remember coming home from the funeral and thinking, there's no way that this is the end. There's absolutely no way that a life this beautiful and a friendship this amazing, that this was the ending. And I made a promise to myself on that day and to Miguel that I would do everything and anything in my power to make sure that no one had felt the way that Miguel had felt, and also the way the community was feeling. So I started off with a single tweet. I said, does anybody want to help me create a mental health group? It narrowed down to about 10 people, and we called ourselves Peace of Mind 204. And 204 is the area code for the province that I'm from. And so we decided to have events called YAMIS, Youth Against Mental Health and Illness Stigma. And at these events, we have young people come together and they share their stories and experiences surrounding mental health, whether it be in the education system, within their families, or their friend groups, or the healthcare system. And we all just came together to have simple conversation. So at the first YAMIS, we had 100 people come together. On the second one, we had 200. On the third one, we had 250. And on the fourth one, we had 700 young people come together from across Manitoba, and it was funded by an $11,000 grant by the government of Manitoba. And I remember this one girl that I met, and she came up to me, and she was a refugee from Syria, and she said, "Loizza, you know, I've never heard the words mental health together side by side in a sentence." And I realized that that was the one time and the first time that I found out that there was so much power behind conversation. So in 2017, Peace of Mind became an incorporated nonprofit in Manitoba, and we expanded to Toronto. In 2018, we expanded to Ottawa through smaller scaled events. And in 2019, we became a federally incorporated nonprofit organization, officially being registered as Peace of Mind Canada. And we're beginning to grow our expansions in Ottawa and Toronto, while also expanding to British Columbia and planning for our first Peace of Mind event in the United States. Thank you. So these events taught me two things. One, young people want to talk about mental health, but it can be difficult without the safe space and the platform to do so. Two, there is power in simple conversation. That brings me back to the stigma surrounding mental health. There's a stigma surrounding mental health. And the silence it entails may be loud, but together, our voices are much louder and much more powerful. I'm a large believer in the fact that you don't have to change the whole world to create a change, but you can change one person's world and make all the difference. And even though mental health is a touchy subject, it doesn't mean that it should not be touched, because conversation leads to awareness, and awareness leads to education, and education leads to a more empathetic approach to mental health and just about anything else that you could be passionate about. Thanks. And I promise you, you won't regret having these conversations, because I know what it's like to not have had it and not take it seriously. I need you to look around the room again and look at the thousands of stories and faces in front of you. And I want to encourage you to talk to at least 5 more new people before YMCA 175 is over. It doesn't have to be to talk about mental health, but I believe we all have something to offer, and I believe that we all have stories worth listening to and lives worth living. Our walks of lives may be completely different, but they all have value and they all have worth. I've told my story over 100 times. I'm not gonna lie and say that it's gotten to be completely easy, but I realize that the challenges that I have when sharing the story, it gets overpowered and trumped over by the amount of change it can create in this world. So also, please feel free to find me at any point in time throughout the rest of these next few days. Message me on Twitter or Instagram. I do want to talk about mental health with everyone here, if I could, and also talk about ways that we could bring mental health to your YMCA. And I may be the one up here sharing my story, but I'm exactly like all of you. A single young person wanting to create change with a common goal of doing good. I'm available here to bounce off ideas and hear your stories. Changing the world and eradicating the stigma surrounding mental health is not exclusive to the world and I, so let's have these conversations. You never know who you're saving when you share your story and open up an opportunity for dialogue. It might seem like a small action and a small change by sharing your story and speaking up, but there's no such thing as a change too small. Important conversations surrounding environment, civic engagement, health and well-being, or economic empowerment and employment, they all need to happen, and they're all equally as important. Let me be living, breathing proof that you're never too young to create a change, because when you're faced with adversity, you have the choice to practice resiliency. My journey was not short of challenges, as the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life is crawl out of this hole that I was in, decide to strip the power from the pain that was holding me down, and turn it into something that I could create proactive resolutions for people like Miguel. So, for a long time, I did not want to talk. The warmth Miguel had made me feel was gone, and there was emptiness in places that should not have been that cold. Eventually, I learned that these conversations surrounding mental health needed to be had, because you cannot solve an issue without talking about it. We cannot eradicate the stigma surrounding mental health without saying the word self-harm. We cannot eradicate the stigma surrounding mental health without saying the word depression. We cannot eradicate the stigma surrounding mental health without saying the word anxiety. And we cannot eradicate the stigma surrounding mental health without saying the word suicide. We must learn to utilize the most powerful resource that we all have access to, our voices. We must learn to come together to inspire and encourage resiliency. So now I need help from you all one last time by sharing with me, with everyone else in the room, and with everyone around the world on the live stream, your voice. All I need is one big I promise, with everything you have in your heart after these statements, so we can all be witnesses to the power of conversation and show others that they are not alone and we are all in this together. So, if you have not been practicing self-care, do you promise to make today day one of caring for your mental health? Do you promise to be kind and smile at strangers, for we truly never know the battles someone may be facing? Do you promise to do your best to be a voice for the 19 people that have lost their lives to suicide around the world since I stepped foot on this stage? And last, do you promise to do your part in eradicating the stigma surrounding mental health by having conversation and being a voice for those we have lost and those still struggling in silence? My acknowledgement for the power of conversation came to me when I realized that slowly but surely, with one voice at a time, one story at a time, and one voice at a time, I could show others that they are not alone, and that the warmth that Miguel made me feel could be rekindled by conversation and by creating for others some peace of mind. My name is Loizza Aquino. I'm 19 years old, and as a young person, I know it can be scary to spark conversation surrounding mental health and anything else you may be passionate about. But I promise you that your voice possesses the power to create social change around the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm noticing this theme in these conversations about mental health that has to do with the idea that we're never stuck. No matter what it is that we're facing, there's always a choice that we can make. Sometimes that choice is, I'm just gonna sit on the couch for a while and not think. Sometimes that choice is, I'm gonna have a conversation with someone. Sometimes that choice is, I'm going to practice yoga for self-care. We were just talking about the importance of taking care of yourself, and that's such a huge thing for the YMCA.
It is.
Right?
And the importance of creating the space so people have that choice.
Yeah. So let that be something that we continue to think about. We're always either welcoming someone into a space or, and able to choose something that gives someone space. With that in mind, I think
we have a video to show.
Video to show.
We can be. We must be the first generation to end extreme poverty.
The generation
Most determined
to fight injustice and inequalities.
The generation that saves the planet from climate change.
And this is how it will get done. The global goals.
A 15-year plan
For everyone, everywhere.
with no one left behind.
We
will live in a world
where nobody
anywhere
Lives in extreme poverty.
where no one
goes hungry.
where no one
Wakes in the morning.
Asking if there will be food today.
We will live in a world
where no child has to die of
Diseases we know how to cure. And where proper health care
is a lifelong right for us all.
We will live in a world where everyone goes to school. And education gives us the knowledge
and skills
for a fulfilling life.
We will live in a world where all girls and all women have equal opportunities to thrive
And be powerful.
and safe.
We cannot succeed if half the world is head back.
We will live in a world
Where all people can get clean water
and proper toilets at home,
At school.
and at work.
We will live in a world where there's sustainable energy for everyone.
Heat, light, and power for the whole planet.
Without destroying the planet.
We'll live in a world where economies prosper and new wealth
Leads to decent jobs.
For everyone.
And we will live in a world where our industry,
Our infrastructure and our
Best innovations
Are not just used to make money, but to make all our lives better.
we will live in a world
where prejudices and extremes of inequality
are defeated
inside our countries
and between different countries.
Where people live in cities and communities
that are safe, progressive,
And support everyone who lives there.
where we replace
what we consume,
Planet where we put back
what we take out of the earth.
We live in a world that is decisively rolling back the threat of climate
change.
where we restore and protect the life in our oceans and seas.
will restore and protect
life on land,
The forests,
animals,
The earth itself.
with peace between and inside countries.
Where all governments are open
And answer to us for what they do at home and abroad.
And the justice rules.
with everyone equal before the law.
Where all countries and we their people,
Work together.
partnerships of all kinds,
To make these goals a reality.
These are the United Nations global goals.
for sustainable development.
Let's get to work.
We are constantly at the Y in a state of balancing our own mind, body, and spirit with the broader world that we serve and that we are a part of. This next speaker is going to round out our series of conversations this morning about mental health and our own well-being in the context of this broader world. He is an author, he is a creator, and it just so happens that we met last night and he was grabbing a piece of bread from the hotel lobby, and so he's fully carbo loaded to give you all of the energy that he has to round us out for this morning's session. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jeff Sparr.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words, and a real honor to be with you folks today. And I want to take this opportunity to just say how proud I am of not only the 175 committee, but the YMCA global leadership for including mental health on this important global platform. So thank you for that. You know, when I first started talking about mental health, a lot of the things that I said, people weren't comfortable with. And I think looking back, maybe the world wasn't ready to discuss the reality and the large-scale impact that it was having on our society. But I'm here today. I see you, I hear you, and I'm with you. Mid-1980s, picture this, I'm a 20-year-old junior at Ohio State University. I'm on scholarship, thank you. I'm on scholarship, living my dream. Meanwhile, my mind is being overtaken by these terrible, obtrusive, unwanted thoughts that I'm powerless to fight. And my mental health is spiraling out of control. I'm scared, I'm alone, and what am I supposed to do? I couldn't talk to my teammates. They would think I was crazy. I couldn't talk to my coach. He'd probably bench me. I couldn't talk to my parents because I wouldn't want to put that burden on them. Mid-1980s, there were no mental health services available, even on a campus like Ohio State. So I did what any good athlete would do. I sucked it up, and I got worse. With something that nobody could see, I didn't even understand, and I couldn't even talk about it. Well, I didn't come to London today for you to feel bad for me. I came here instead to tell you I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm one of the lucky ones because I got diagnosed with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and for the last 35 years, I've fought a debilitating illness that tries to steal from me every moment of my life, even as I stand here in front of you right now. But through medication, exposure therapy, and for those of you that aren't familiar with exposure therapy, it's a painful process where you basically expose yourself to what you fear the most in the hope of eventually inoculating yourself. A loving family, a support network. I've been able to have this wonderful life. I have 3 beautiful kids, a beautiful wife, and it all looks good on the outside. Unfortunately, I can't control the attacks. So what I choose to focus on is what I can control, what I can do. I can choose to exercise. I can choose to meditate. I can choose to do yoga. I can choose to journal. All things I do probably before most everybody here woke up this morning, to be honest with you. Unfortunately, myself, like millions of others that suffer from mental illness, I've been looking for that magic potion to make me better. Well, I'm here to tell you a little secret. There ain't no magic potion. Thank God I found creativity. 25 years ago, I'm coming home from work one day. Picture this. And I get a call from a friend and says to me, "Hey, Jeff, I read an article and they said that painting might be good for you." I never painted a day in my damn life. But when you're desperate, you know what you'll try? Anything. So I rerouted, went to the paint art supply store, I came home, and I never stopped. Creativity literally changed my life. It was like I had found this superpower. It gave me a sense of control that not only OCD, but all mental illnesses can rob you of. It gave me a way through my own images in paintings to express what I couldn't find the words to say. It provided me a vulnerable space, a safe space where I could share not only my art, but my story. And that in turn led to this next improbable thing that people actually liked my artwork, which was crazy considering the fact that I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And when I say no idea, I mean no idea. And I don't know whether, people connected to my willingness through my images to say what I was going through. I painted things like Half Daddy, how I felt when I was with my children, or Stop the Madness in my head, or Getting Better. Maybe it was my whimsical style and my use of colors, and I had all kinds of titles. Maybe, in fact, it was my faceless characters, which is my trademark, and I think most people think is the face of mental illness or is community or all this heavy stuff, when the truth is I just can't draw a damn face. But anyways, it got to the point where people started to put my stuff into some private collections. It made its way to some galleries. Next thing you know, it's in a casino. Next thing you know, it's at the Grammys, Music Cares. And people actually want to start buying my artwork. Well, to be honest with you, I was a little uncomfortable facilitating the sale myself, so I just gave it to people for the most part. Well, enter my cousin Matthew Kaplan. Matt suggested to me that that was not a really good business proposition for my art career. So he was kind enough to offer to host a art show for my work. So a couple months later, Matt has this art show, and he comes up to me at the end of the night, and he's all excited, and he says, "You're not going to believe this, man." He said, "We sold $16,000 of art tonight." And I'm like, "Woo, that's awesome, dude." He says, "What do you want to do with the money?" I could think of a lot of things to do with a spare 16K. And then I stopped, and it would be the moment that literally would change my life. I looked at him and I said, "You know, Matt, I paint. It makes me feel better. Maybe it'll help somebody else." That's it. 2 weeks later, I walked on into a hospital, a psychiatric children's unit that not only was I a board member of, but I was a patient. And I remember like it was yesterday, walking through that hospital. I had a bag of art supplies over my shoulder, paints and brushes, and I'm walking through this lobby, and I get onto the unit, and 8 to 12-year-old kids, battling all types of mental health challenges, including OCD, and it hit me really hard. It hit me really hard. I had 3 young kids at the time, and to be honest with you, at that point, I panicked. I panicked because I realized I didn't have any qualifications. What the heck am I doing there? I'm not a doctor. I'm not an art therapist. All I was someone that just wanted to help. So I did the only thing that I was qualified to do, and the only thing I was comfortable doing. I told these kids my story. And as part of my story, I was explaining to the kids my own battle with mental illness and OCD, and as I said that, out of nowhere, I hear this, "Hey, Jeff, I got OCD too!" And I'm like, it startled me, right? And I look out, and it was this young boy. His name was Nathan. He's probably 10 years old, and he's looking at me, all excited. And I exchanged a look and a glance with him that I can't even explain to you. It defied the 4 decades difference in our age. And the class started, and I shared with the kids that day, my own art and my process and how I did it and how it helped me find some peace of mind. I had, boards that I showed them with Hot Wheels and things that were, maybe they'd be interested in. And I was surprised by a couple things. One, that they were interested, because I didn't know what to expect, but more, I was surprised at how much these kids understood. They got what I was talking about, which shocked me. So now it comes time to start the class, and I put the brushes out and the canvases and the paints, and it's time to go, and I put my hand up with a piece of paper, and I go like this, and I rip it up, and I say, "Okay, there are no rules to this class," and I throw it up in the air, and all the kids are running around, and they're picking it up. I mean, it's out of control. And I say, "Oh, but there's 2 things." I said, "You have to have fun, and I want you to make mistakes." I said, because that's where true creativity comes, when you start making real mistakes. So the class starts, and I wish everybody could see what was going on. These kids start painting on the canvases, they're painting on the tables, they're painting on each other, they're painting on me. And, it's hard to even imagine where I am and what's happening, right? So now it's time to share, and I figured I would try something. I figured, okay, who would like to share their painting and what gives them some peace of mind? I had no idea what to expect. Completely shocked, as one kid after another, not only did they want to share, they held their paintings up like this, and in most cases like this, and shared what gave them peace of mind as best they could, and in many cases, their own struggle. And the other kids in the room, they clapped, and they applauded. And I didn't know what, I knew I was watching something that was truly remarkable, so I looked over at the docs, I looked over at the art therapist. I looked over at the other observers that were watching this for the first time, and I could see them. They're all going like, what the heck is going on here? It was, truly remarkable. And at that point, I realized that Nathan wasn't there. So I said to the art therapist, I said, excuse me, could you tell me, where's Nathan? Art therapist goes like this, down and he says, he's under there. He's under the table. He said he's been down there for like 10 minutes with a pen and a pad. Okay, well, we get going, and about 10 minutes later, he resurfaces, and if I can do this. Oh, he resurfaces, and he says to me, he says, Jeff, I have something I'd like to give you. The art therapist escorts me out into the corridor, and this young man reads me this note, which is behind me, and I'll read it if I can to you. Jeff, you are a nice person. I like you a lot. Thank you for teaching us lots of things. You are a good guy. My dad told me you should follow your dreams and keep up the good work. Love, your friend, Nathan. Thank you. Now I ask you, does a guy like me need any more inspiration than that? That was my first experience in doing what I do today, of sharing my story and trying to help others, use creativity to find their emotions. Because the truth is, when we share our stories, we create community, we create safe space, we create trust, and we create a kinder, gentler, maybe more empathetic, world to try to have these conversations. People think what I do, and they'll say to me, Jeff, it's courageous. It's brave to get up here and share your story. And to be honest with you, I don't even think twice about it. I think of it more as my obligation and a privilege to do that. So what I'd like to leave with you is two things, because this work is something that we are going to have to do together. Together, we are going to have to, as a global community, harness the power of creativity and storytelling to make it a little easier to talk about, as well as support mental health and wellness. Every Wednesday morning, every Wednesday at 6 a.m., I paint, no matter what. No matter where I am in the world, no matter what I'm doing. And obviously, I get some peace of mind from it. That's what got me here. But I think equally and maybe more important, it's a reminder that I've got to take care of myself. So with that, I want to challenge all of you. I want to challenge all of you to invite creativity into your life. Over the next few days, I want you can paint, you can draw, you can sketch, you can take a photo, but I want you to do something. And I want you to share that with me at this email address. And I can assure you, I will get it. And if you do that, I'm going to send you an original piece of my art as a way of saying thank you for taking care of yourself. We have many challenges that we face as a global society, mental health being one of them. But before we can change that conversation, and before we can take care of others, we need to take care of ourselves. This revolution starts with you. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So that.
Muchas gracias to all our speakers.
Sí,
That
muchas
was amazing.
gracias. That wraps it up.
Yeah, we have a few announcements to make before you guys go. Just remember, those of you who are going to the 1 o'clock breakout sessions, please go to the to take lunch first, so you have enough time to go to your session. Those of you who are doing the 1:30, please wait a little bit so those who need to go first can go and we avoid crowds. Talking about food, we also realized that there was some challenges last night about food running out. That has been addressed by the organization, and there should be no issue tonight. So we got it fixed. And remember that all the menus are available on the app. And also on translations, you can also look for them at the app. For instance, all of our TED speakers have their presentations available in Chinese, German, Spanish, English, and something like that. So we encourage you to look for those presentations, and also for later today, if you need any assistance, you can go to the desk or look at the app.
And if you are attending workshops later this afternoon, even if you've signed up, we encourage you to show up early. We have lots of crowded rooms, so if you want to get a seat and be comfortable, make sure that you show up to your workshops early. And before we sign off, I want to say bye to the live stream. Also want to thank our speakers again. It is truly a challenge to get up here and share any piece of your story. Especially and it is especially challenging to be vulnerable as it relates to your own mental health. So we're really grateful to all of them for modeling that behavior, and we hope that you will continue to do the same by sharing authentically with each other how you are doing and creating space for people to do the same. Thank you all so much for a great session.
Enjoy
Thank
your
you,
lunch.
Tonya.
Bye.
Good.